You're listening to Around Comics, episode 300?
Chicago, this is Around Comics, the comic culture podcast, where each month we talk about everything in and around the world of comics. I'm your host, Christopher Neseman, and I am joined, as always, by my partner in crime, Mr. Brian Salazar.
Oh, it is so good to hear that. It's been so long.
I know.
So good.
Not bad, not bad.
Yeah.
I didn't practice that in the shower today, I swear.
Sure.
Twice. And clocking in at 6'6", 250 pounds,
Whoa.
from the University of Wisconsin, the man in the middle, Mr. Tom Katers.
I didn't think we were recording this.
we were just gonna talk.
You're just gonna talk. You guys you trapped me.
We tricked you. We told Tom, hey, we just want to get together over Skype and just bullshit.
That's what we're gonna do
Anyway.
Just chit chat.
Just chit.
So, long time no listen for a lot of you out there. I believe that Sal had pulled out the time abacus, also known as his computer, and figured out that it's been almost 7 years to the week that we last got together to talk about comics and everything in and around the world of comics. So for old listeners, longtime listeners, it's great to have you back, and we're thrilled to be putting some episodes out again. We're going to be doing this monthly is the idea. For new listeners, I apologize. You're probably going to miss out on a lot of inside jokes and whatnot, but we don't care. That's okay.
Yeah, I do want to say, the last episode we recorded was February 12th of 2012, the day after my birthday. What did you guys not get me for my birthday that we ended everything?
Broke it up?
Yeah.
Just broke up the band?
What the fuck?
Maybe it's what we did get you for your
Maybe
birthday.
it is.
Yeah. Nothing
Chlamydia?
really happened in 7 years, so
No.
I only feel roughly 20 years older than
Your life has changed in 7 years, Thomas Katers.
significantly, yeah.
Yeah. This is actually, we're going to bring out the ghost of Christmas past for this episode. Tom and
I have 2 kids now.
Yeah, you procreated.
Yeah, one of them's 5.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah, right?
We were just talking about my 14-year-old pit bull, and Sal's like, "Oh my God, is she that old?" It's like, yeah. So yes, we've all aged, and the comic industry has certainly aged and changed, and I've been trying to catch up on some stuff. I'm not whole hog like I was in my younger years, but I'm lucky enough. I live around the corner from a comic shop here in Milwaukee. The intro said it's from Chicago, but it's actually from the Upper Midwest, I guess. Will we change it to
Great Lakes.
Upper Midwest? It's Great Lakes. It's Great Lakes Adventures. So since our last episode, I've relocated. My wife and the dogs and I are now residents of the wonderful city of Milwaukee. We love it here, and I'm right around the corner from Collector's Edge, and so I drop in there, and I'm able to check out some of the new stuff coming out, and I was pleasantly surprised by some of the things I've been picking up. So comics seem to be alive and well. You guys, is that your take? Are comics good?
Okay. Well, they didn't die without us, I guess.
I know.
My dream that the comics industry would just crumble and die without me talking about them. Didn't
Not
work.
around comics. There is no future for this industry.
How do people get their news? How do people find? How do people know about what was said at a convention? There must be somehow someone must have learned.
Yeah,
what happened at conventions.
Somebody had to read those Newsarama press clips.
Exactly.
I think there's plenty of podcasts out there still doing it. If I check the iTunes search, I think there's a handful out there still.
I guess that's one of the things that you know, we may not notice it as much as because it's you know it's hard for me to put it into words, but it's so everywhere now between the movies, between you know, stuff on TV and just everywhere. I was flipping through the Roku the other day, and like Sci-Fi Network has these great little webisodes. I don't even know if they call them they don't call them webisodes. I'm an old man. I call them webisodes, but they're put out on streaming services. And it was like a 15-minute interview and tour of John Byrne's studio and like mini museum in his house, and it was just there on YouTube. I'm like, that's amazing. And it was actually a really cool interview. Not as good as ours, but it was really cool to see that. And I'm just like, you know, it's everywhere. And if you just kind of, you know, sit back and look at what's going on, I mean, the comics culture has really become such a huge part of the zeitgeist, which is, I don't know, I guess, is it kind of exciting, cool, neat, whatever? Deadly Class is on Sci-Fi now, right?
Yeah, I guess it's all right. I don't know.
I think it's good, and I mean, it's a little bit of oversaturation for me. There's so much of it, and I think, I don't know, I think for the most part it's still pretty good. You know, I don't think anything has gotten to a tipping point where like comic book movies are getting worse, or they're, you know, kind of getting I don't want to say exploited, but I mean, the quality of them is so good in the shows and everything, even the stuff that's not great. Like, I saw Aquaman with my kids.
How was it?
It was good. It was fine. Like, it was fun. You know, there were some cool things to it, and it's not a great movie, but it's Aquaman. Like, when was I ever going to see an Aquaman movie as a kid? You know, would I ever think that I'd see an Aquaman movie? But yeah, it is kind of just permeated everything now. I mean, it's every person. It's funny. I was at my gym not that long ago, and there was 3 or 4 guys sitting around stretching on the mats, getting ready, and comic book movies and stuff came up, and it's kind of funny to listen to the fans talk about comics now, and it's much more about the movies, and the cartoons than it is the comic books, and the histories even are getting a little bit, I think, convoluted, muddled, taken over by the movies.
Like the comics weren't good enough at doing that on their own.
True.
I think that's probably because I think that especially the Marvel movies, they figured out how to tell those stories in like a pretty simple way. Though it's complex, the story itself is fairly simple, far simpler probably than most comics that you're going to get into. So I think there's a reason why people have just gravitated towards those, and they sort of take over. Because
they're fun.
They're
fun.
Compelling. Yeah. They're compelling and fun, and like they have captured sort of the zeitgeist in a way in the last 7 years.
Yeah. You know, I love that it made Ant-Man cool. And I love those movies. I love both those movies. Ant-Man and the Wasp was great. I thought it was just great popcorn fun, which is what a lot of it should be. It's, you know, it's Eric Deggans is a film and TV critic on NPR, and I'm still an NPR nerd. But last year, at the end of year wrap up, I think he said that this was the year that he admitted to himself and told himself that he couldn't consume everything. and he had to pick and choose because there was so much good out there in entertainment. And I think we've gotten to that point that it's almost impossible to just consume, and then, you know, in our case, whenever we were doing the podcast, would be to consume and then report back on it and talk about it. And he's like, no, I just have to pick the things that I think I'm going to like and take recommendations, that there's literally no way to consume everything. And I started feeling that way with comics because there's so many titles out there and so many things that, you know, good stuff, because there's great creators out there. It's almost impossible to just consume it all. And I think ultimately that's a pretty healthy place to be, right?
You know, that I have barely kept up with what's happening in comics, and it actually was very liberating. So now when I go back or I read new stuff, I care so little about what's going on, which is usually not that important actually at all. You know, like what the thing, whatever is happening, you know, whatever the thing is that you're supposed to like or dislike is actually not important really to enjoying anything. So once you've dropped that away and you're just sort of like, oh, this looks interesting, and I'll read it, and you read some of it, and you're like, this is boring. And then you don't feel compelled that you have to, like, keep reading it. You're like, yeah, all right, whatever. Like, being a little bit divorced from everything has been awesome.
Sure. Well, let's get into it. What have you been reading, Mr.
You know, I am such a basic bitch. So the only thing I've been reading lately is I've been trying to read the Grant Morrison Doom Patrol omnibus, which I got as a present.
Oh, neat.
It's, you know, it's a huge book, so I have to like read it.
You could beat someone to death with that book.
Yeah, you can definitely beat someone to death with the and in certain parts bore them to death. But so you know that's what I've been reading lately. And when they were originally coming out years and years ago, I've always had sort of mixed feelings about Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol, and I think now reading them in a big chunk, it's because some of it's super boring and kind of predictable, in like sort of a weird, crazy way, right? Like something can be chaotic.
What, like 2002?
Yeah.
Early 2000s, right? I mean, it's like 15-ish years old.
Yeah, and now that I'm old, I'm like, how the fuck did I read these? Like, they barely make sense. Like, yeah, I had to, for me to get them, I had to read like 20 of them over the course of like a week. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get this. And I'm like 3/4 of the way through, and I think I like it now much more than I used to like it. I've sort of grown to appreciate it a little bit more. There's a really great section of it where one of the villains, Mr. Nobody, runs for president, which is just a very timeless send-up of the political system in a way that probably resonates more now.
It's aged well.
It's aged extremely well. In comparison to some of the things in there that I think haven't necessarily aged quite as well.
You know, that's what I was going to ask you. It's when it comes to Morrison, I went someone We3 this week, and it's a friend of mine, a curling friend of mine. There's your curling plug. It's a friend of mine who's recently started reading comics at a pretty high rate. I mean, she's absolutely into comics right now, and so she was up here visiting, and so I just put together a stack of stuff that I thought that she would dig, and I was like, We3 is very accessible and is always a tearjerker, and I think I hadn't read it in a long time, but I imagine it ages well. Do you think Morrison, as like high level as he always was, and I think wanted to be, do you think his stuff ages well?
It depends on what it is. I mean, I don't think it's the high levelness that makes it age well or poorly. And just reading, a bunch of Doom Patrols in a row, there's a very, there's a rhythm to it, right? There's a rhythm to the stories he's telling, Here's some crazy madcap bad guy, who you kind of don't understand. Here's Robot Man reacting to it because he's like the everyman who's a robot. Here's, you know, like, and all the characters sort of play their roles. And there's a big chunk of the run where it's like, okay, I know what's going to happen. Like, some insane villain is going to show up and, like, shatter reality. And then the Doom Patrol kind of win, but not really. They just sort of happen to win. And Robot Man is the everyman, you know, and Crazy Jane's like the sidekick to that, you know. And it takes a little while for him to, like, break out of that rhythm of that. To start making those things tie together a little bit more instead of just like, okay, what villain that I'm barely going to understand is going to show up this time. Like, he starts to, like, bring villains back a second time, and you start to, like, it just starts to, like, break out of the rhythm of it that I think every time I've tried to go back and read it, I always got stuck in the same part, which was, like, 1/4 of the way through the omnibus where I was like, oh my God.
That happens to me with Sandman every
it's like,
time.
Are all these, it's like, are all these stories going to be this story?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, and then all of a sudden, I kind of like, after failing a few times, I was like, okay, I'm just going to, like, go through it. I'm sure, I remember liking more than this, right? So, because I also can barely remember what I've read 15 years ago.
Oh wow, you're getting old. You're like us now.
You know, it's like,
Tom, it's the best thing because all of the old comics that you know that you loved that you can't actually fucking remember anything, you just go read them again. It's great.
So read them. It's great. Yeah, so I've been reading that, and I'm now at the point where I'm like, I'm getting, like, this is kind of not falling into that rhythm so much anymore. You know, like, now I'm kind of like, the story is sort of. When they introduced, like, Flex Mentallo, and then they start having, like, the idea that maybe, like, the bad guys, like Mr. Nobody, who's sort of like this just crazy madcap character, maybe he's not the bad guy. Like, what would be so bad if he won? And sort of like that stuff where it's sort of like kind of going against the standard superhero, good guy, bad guy type vibe. I started to find more interesting.
I'm going to grab.
But yeah,
Doom Patrol's one of those books that I kind of hate myself for not enjoying it more. Like, I love the concept of Doom Patrol, even like the Silver Age Doom Patrol, the Morrison stuff, and even the Gerard Way stuff that came out just a little while ago. I love the idea of Doom Patrol, like those characters and how they're put together and everything. But I've always just had for whatever reason, such a hard time enjoying the actual stories. It's funny, I am coincidentally reading the Silver Age. I just bought the Silver Age Volume 1.
It's the X-Men.
Yeah, it kind of. It's a darker, it's a little weirder.
It's a weirder version of the X-Men.
Weirder version of the X-Men, which is funny. I didn't realize it until my son was giving me he had like some online quiz that he was doing. It was all about superheroes, and it was like comparing superheroes, which superhero was older. And it would give you 2 superheroes or 2 books or 2 whatever, and ask you which one came first. And it was X-Men and the Doom Patrol were one of the quizzes. And I'm like, well, the X-Men, I think it was the X-Men, right? And they actually came out in the same year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But, it's one of those books where, like, I keep going back trying to really enjoy it because I feel like I should. Like, I should really like the Doom Patrol. And I'm kind of looking forward to DC Universe is doing a Doom Patrol show.
With James Bond, Timothy Dalton. Timothy Dalton's going to be in it, right?
I don't know. Is he? Is Timothy Dalton? Is he playing
Professor X?
No, not Professor X. It's not Professor X.
Have you seen? Have you watched the Titan show in DC Universe? But it's just another thing. My son loves Super Friends. He loves the Super Friends cartoon.
Like the ones that we watched.
The original, like
the Alex Ross Super Friends.
The like 1970s, like Batman's gonna save you from getting in a skateboarding accident.
Nice.
Like teach you a lesson about like skateboarding's fun, but let's play it safe. Be smart. Come on.
It's not a career. You're not going to make a career out of skateboarding, son.
Be careful.
So
you have I got the DC Universe app just because it has all those cartoons on it, and he watches them like constantly, just over and over again. So I started watching the Titans, the DC Universe show.
I hear it's dark.
It is, it's funny. It is dark. But really, if they just like toned down the blood, it wouldn't be that dark. Okay. Like if you just like made the careful editing choice of like, let's not have quite so many blood splatters, or like
It's like a lot of video games today. I actually saw that setting in a video game a couple weeks ago where you could set like the blood level. It's like how gory it is.
Let's maybe cut out of this scene about like 3 seconds faster, and it wouldn't quite be so bad. Like if you can get past like I think maybe the gratuitousness a little bit of the blood splatters, I actually found myself enjoying it. And I watched the episode with the Doom Patrol in it the other day, and I was like, I want to see this Doom Patrol show. This would be good. Okay. Like it was very.
Am I crazy? It's Timothy Dalton's in it, right?
You gotta look it up.
I don't remember. I watched the whole show. I just don't remember Timothy Dalton.
Unless he's wrapped up in the bandages, if he's a negative man.
Oh, that could be.
Which would be funny.
It'd be kind of a waste of Timothy Dalton.
He plays Chief.
He plays Chief? Does he?
Yeah.
Is that Timothy Dalton?
Yes, that's Timothy Dalton.
I don't know. I can't remember shit.
By the way, his IMDb picture is of the James Bond tuxedo wearing Timothy Dalton.
Well, if I was
from like 25 years ago,
for sure.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the Titans show as well, and I agree. It is. I wonder if we'll ever get to the point where, did you guys happen to see the
Brendan Fraser plays Cliff Steele.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Brendan Fraser?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of funny. I didn't know that. Did you guys see the Netflix the Black Mirror Bandersnatch?
I did not.
It's the guy from White Collar plays Larry Trainer. Sorry.
Jesus, are we gonna go over the whole cast here, Chris?
You go to IMDb. We're talking about Bandersnatch?
Did you see Bandersnatch, the Black Mirror?
No.
It's a choose your own adventure movie. It's interesting.
Yeah. Which they got sued for that, right?
Say that again?
They're getting sued from someone.
Yeah, the choose your own adventure book publisher is suing them, evidently. I'm sure they'll settle out of court. But it was an interesting experiment, I would say.
Is it the future of TV?
It's cool. It's very interesting to watch. I would recommend watching it. It's very interesting. It's cool. But my point was, I wonder if we'll ever get to a point where you can choose your own like rating on a movie. They'll just film it rated R, and then you can scale it back. You go, I don't want to see as much blood. I don't want to see the gratuitous sex scenes and Timothy Dalton.
Yeah, because it's like the Titan stuff. Like it's not like woven into the fabric of the show. You could take that stuff out, and it would essentially be this. It would be the same.
It almost takes you out of the show because it's so like the show's going along and it's like, oh, this is a normal, kind of superhero show. It's good. And then all of a sudden you have these really bloody fight scenes and really super violent scenes. It's like, it's not, like you said, it's not really woven into it where you would lose anything. It kind of made sense, I guess, what they were trying with Dick Grayson and his character, which I liked. They're basically, he's the time period is basically where he's quitting being Robin. He's going to turn into Nightwing, and the reason they kind of give you behind it is he realizes that Batman has basically weaponized him and turned him into this very violent.
What?
Yeah.
What?
And, well, he's coming to that sort of realization, and he doesn't like it, but he can't sort of stop himself from being super violent. So that's part of it, but yeah, I could do without that. Although the Hawk and Dove, I really like the guy they got to play Hawk for Hawk and Dove. I thought he was excellent, and him being he wasn't violent enough. Like I thought he should have been more violent. Like Hawk was always over the top.
So,
It's like
I'm gonna ask a stupid question.
Yeah.
How do you do this whole DC universe thing?
Just download it to a Roku or
Yeah.
phone
Okay,
or
and
iPad.
Amazon Fire.
and it's a subscription.
Yeah.
What's the subscription run?
I think it's $80 a year if you pay for
Okay.
yearly. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I don't remember what it is monthly. Like
And so
$70 or something.
you get Titans and Super Friends. What else do you get?
You get like all their animated stuff.
Okay.
Like,
Batman animated, and there's a new
Batman
Justice League animated.
yeah.
Okay. I'm
It's
saying
like-
I'm asking this for the people. I actually already
Yeah.
know all this.
Oh shit! You want to
No,
be
I
informative?
don't. I
Sorry.
don't.
Well, you'll
just-
get they're doing a Doom Patrol show, a
Okay.
spin-off from the Titans, and then I'm assuming they're going to do other original, more original programming.
Is there a way to read comics through it?
Yes.
Okay.
I
So if you
wanted to hate
subscribe-
the Titan show
Mhm.
because I was like, this preview. I think like when that first trailer came out,
Right.
I don't think it did itself a lot of justice with
Agreed.
the trailer, because then I was sort of like, I'll watch it and see what it is, and I found myself actually won over by the parts that weren't the super violent parts of it, or should I say like I think the violence is of course in there, just like the weird, like we got to show how much blood there
Mhm.
is, and like we got to show like that one level up, right? Like of course superheroes are going to be violent, they like punch bad guys, and like Robin's going to fight these bad guys, but like the little gratuitousness of like the blood splatter and the broken arm, like those little things that kind of like elevate it one notch up a little bit. And then when that stuff wasn't happening, I was like, this is pretty, like, this is a decent story. Like, I
I
could
like
get
the
into this.
cast. I like the
Yeah.
kids that they cast for each of the characters. I thought the Garth kid was great. I thought, what's her name, Raven, was good. Yeah,
Do you think they're gonna build this universe with these shows into a universe like they did with the WB, or do you think it's going like will Doom Patrol and Titans overlap, and are they going to
sure.
try and?
They
Okay.
already have.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
Doom Patrol
had-
was in an episode of the Titans, and then they're spinning that off into.
Are they shared universe with Arrow and Flash, or is that all different?
Don't know.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's Earth B,
Earth, whatever.
TV, Earth TV.
Earth TV.
TV versus Earth streaming.
It's Earth WB.
CW. It's the CW.
It's CW now.
Yeah.
God,
Come on,
damn.
old man.
Yeah, shit.
Which-
Sorry.
I have to say,
It's on channel 11.
I love the Flash, and I like DC Legends of Tomorrow on the CW. I'm not a big Arrow fan any longer. I kind of got bored with that show, but and I love the crossovers they do. They do a crossover every
Legends
year.
of Tomorrow is my guilty pleasure.
Legends of Tomorrow is fucking insane. It's just like,
That's why I
so
love
fun.
it.
It's so
yeah,
fun.
they're just like, fuck it. We're just gonna like have Gorilla Grodd go back in time to assassinate Obama.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
just what.
It's like they haven't canceled us. Well, fuck it. Let's go.
No
Yeah.
rules.
no
Do whatever we
rules.
want now.
Yeah, it's like Wisconsin. It's everything's legal.
It's like, let's just do it. It's fine.
Yeah.
You want to
Yeah.
bring your kid to a bar? Go ahead.
That's all the time. Yeah,
I
that's
really
it.
enjoy it.
It's
I
like
do.
international-
Back to comics. Are we going to go back to have we spent enough time
yeah.
on TV? All right.
Yeah. What have you been reading, man?
The most recent thing I've been reading is Hey Kids Comics by Howard Chaykin. It's 6 issues have come out so far of it, and it's basically a deep dive behind the scenes of the comic book industry from like 1936 to the 2000s. And
Okay.
yeah, it's interesting. I will say this. You guys know I'm a big Howard Chaykin fan. I've
Mhm.
been a huge fan of his forever. And
That's like flag number 1.
yeah. And I over the last few years, like a lot of artists as they get older, their art isn't what it was when they were younger. And they have a hard time maybe, keeping up with their previous best, which is, reasonable to expect from anyone, as they get older.
I mean, we're experiencing that right now.
Yeah, exactly. At this exact moment.
There are phones hitting the pause and stop button all over the world right now.
We're feeling it. We're feeling it right now.
Yeah, we understand. We empathize. But I will say this: I think this book, Chaykin, I feel like this is his best art in a while. I feel like this is some of the best stuff that he's done in quite a few years.
My recent favorite was that run on Blade, which, I mean, shit, that's probably 10 years ago now.
Oh,
I thought that was fantastic. But yeah, go ahead.
But the book itself is, all I can describe it as is interesting. It's not a great story because it's hard to, well, I had a hard time attaching to the characters because there's a lot of them, and most of them are, I think, analogs for real life people. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out who's who and who these stories are about. And, I mean, a few of them were pretty easy. Like there's a Jack Kirby character that's pretty easy. There's a Stan Lee character that's pretty easy to figure out who he is, and a few of them. But then some of them are not. I just don't know. I don't know comics history enough, or I don't know these stories enough. But while it's an interesting read because he's really telling tales out of school, if you will, about the comic industry,
sure.
Marvel and DC respectively. There's a Yankee Comics and Verve Comics are the two. But it doesn't paint the industry as a whole in a good light. It doesn't paint
what?
Yeah, we know a lot of this stuff, but when you kind of see it laid out, the way he does, it's disturbing all over again to realize, how this stuff was made into billion-dollar empires, and how many. Well,
if there's anyone that has a great spyglass for that, it's Chaykin, because he's been in comics, he's been in Hollywood, he understands how the sausage is made in both of those industries.
Yeah, for sure, and he's, I would say, well, Howard, I think, was always a little bitter just against the world, but I don't think it's gotten better as time has gone on. So you kind of got to take that for what
he hasn't
it is.
Turned into a kindly old man.
No, not at all. But it is an interesting read. I wish I kind of knew a little bit more about, that I could recognize who these characters were, so I wasn't spending so much time trying to figure it out, because I thought that took away from my ability to follow the story. That and it jumps around a lot. It jumps around in time. Like every issue, it's sort of, it might start in 1945, and then, that goes on for a few pages, and then all of a sudden it jumps to 1967, and then it might jump back to 1938, and you're kind of trying to follow these characters, and it makes it really hard to follow them because, one, they're aging and de-aging, and there's so many of them that, for me, it was really difficult. I always had a difficult time following a lot of characters if they weren't in spandex anyway, like if they weren't in brightly colored costumes.
It's another man in a suit?
Yeah, it's a gray-haired guy in a suit, another white guy in a suit.
Styles got his laptop open.
It's Silver Age Stan Lee.
Right. And so it was a little difficult to get through, but I did enjoy it from an aspect of like going, kind of peeking behind the curtain once again. I will say this for listeners: if you're a big Stan Lee fan, you may not want to read this. If you've come to comics from the movies and like my daughter is a lot like me. She's pretty tough-minded, and she doesn't cry very often, especially for like a 16-year-old girl. She's not very emotional. She cried when Stan Lee died, and she was very upset. Yeah. So if you're like her and you've come from watching all these movies and seeing Stan Lee as sort of this, happy face of comics, this grandpa that everybody's grandfather, who we all love, this book doesn't necessarily paint him in that light. And it goes into a lot of
type of grandpa.
He's not the sweet old grandpa that.
Yeah, a different.
He's bad grandpa.
He's different.
He made money. He made money.
He did make money. But yeah, it's interesting to read. It's 6 issues. The first volume is 6 issues, and I know he's planning on doing more. And this one follows basically 3 main characters: Ted Whitman, Ray Clark, and Benita Heindel. I have no fucking. The only one I kind of think I know who it is Ray Clark. I think Ray Clark is Gil Kane.
Okay.
Only because there was a story that I had heard before about Gil Kane, and it was retold in this book. It's not a great. It's not a nice story about Gil Kane. Yeah. But
he's just airing it out, huh?
Oh yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, like, he worked for Gil. Howard actually, I think, interned with Gil Kane early in his career.
Wow.
Yeah. So if he's saying this is what happened, then he probably has as much knowledge about it as anybody. Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff in here. There's a lot of people getting screwed over, and but to be fair, I will say, you know, and Howard said this in an interview. I read an interview about this book. He's like, you know, none of us are innocent. You know, none of us in the industry are innocent. So while the publishers don't come off really well, you know, none of the characters really do. I mean, none of them are clean.
This sounds like a fun read.
It's interesting. Like
is this becoming a true crime podcast?
No, it's not that bad. I mean, it's more, you know, sort of questionably moral. And I think part of it just goes to the cutthroat nature of the industry. Like, these people, hey, we're friends, but, you know, I got to live. I got to make a living. You know, if I'm not going to work this month, if I got to kind of screw you over to do it, I'm going to do that. And I think there was a lot of that kind of thing going on, especially.
I you know, you're my friend, but I got to take care of me, kind of stuff.
Yeah. You know, sure. These guys were all struggling, you know, especially in the 30s and 40s. After the war in the 40s, a lot of these guys came back and were trying to get jobs, and they left drawing superheroes, and they came back to an industry that didn't want superhero artists. Jack Kirby couldn't get work, you know what I mean? And he was the best around, and nobody wanted to hire him because he wasn't drawn. Nobody was drawn superheroes. They weren't publishing superhero books. They were looking for other kinds of books.
It was crime and horror.
Yeah. So you like I said, I wish it was a little more chronological. I think it would be a easier story to sort of follow. I don't know why he chose to jump around. Because he jumps around a lot. I mean, the first issue starts off in 1967, and it's at a Broadway showing of a character called Powerhouse, which is basically Superman, and the publisher, the guy who owns Superman at the time, is, you know, walking on the red carpet to the premiere with his sexy trophy wife, and a guy comes up who's like disheveled and doesn't have any money, and stops him, and he gives him a few bucks, and he walks away, and his wife's like, oh, see, he knew who you were. Did you know him? He's like, oh yeah, know him. He created Powerhouse. You know, so it's a Joe Shuster, you know, character that was at, you know, like they said, I know the story, the legend goes, is like, when the first Christopher Reeve Superman movie came out, he was, you know, not destitute, but he was working as like a delivery guy or something, you know.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, his creation is in the box office. So that kind of stuff. That's the upbeat, positive, fun stuff you can get in this comic book, Hey Kids Comics by Howard Chaykin.
Nice. It's, you know, that stuff changed a little bit. It's I remember stories about especially when Lovitz was the publisher, that DC had gotten a lot better about taking care of creators, and so I don't know how it is these days, but yeah, comics is kind of a dirty history.
It's more not... like, hey kids, comics.
Yeah. Hey, you can enjoy these, but just know that a lot of people died broke.
Yeah.
As
Follow me down this alley.
that's okay. Enjoy your stories about your Superman.
So it's no secret. I had some comic fatigue that led me to kind of shelf things for a while and kind of step away from reading comics at the rate that I had, and I was just having trouble finding much joy in what I was reading, and it's probably more me than the comics at the time. But like I said, so I've got a comic shop around the corner. And so I'll drop in there and I'll look for either stuff that looks interesting, or I'll look for some familiar names. And there's this little book by Jeff Lemire that I saw that looked pretty interesting, and I picked it up. And the best way.
It's a little book. Like,
compared to like an absolute or an omnibus edition like the Doom Patrol that you're reading, this is a normal size trade paperback.
Okay.
And for me, it was like putting on a comfy pair of shoes. It just felt good, and that's Black Hammer. Have you read Black Hammer, Tom?
I have not. I've been meaning to.
You will love it.
I read very slowly these days, so by the next time we talk, I'll be halfway through an issue.
That's okay. That's fine. You will adore Black Hammer. It is, for me, it was, and I hate giving the fusion descriptions of it's this meets this.
Elevator pitch. Do it.
It's elevator pitch. It's a lot of BPRD.
Like it.
With kind of some New Frontier. There's a lot of nods to Golden and Silver Age characters, but Lemire has kind of woven it into this kind of really dark, eerie world that it's not Earth. It's kind of like a pocket universe where these characters have been exiled to, and the characters are absolutely ciphers for old comic characters. There's Gail is one of the characters. She's a 9 or 10-year-old girl, and she is a cipher for Shazam or for Captain Marvel. But her and it's Marvel. Not or Mary Marvel. Yeah, it's even though the origin story is much closer to true. Captain Marvel than it is Mary Marvel. That's the only reason I say that. And it's the wizard is not Shazam. It's Zaphram. And her power is a little bit different. She's not a kid who says the magic name and turns into a superpowered adult. She always turns into a superpowered child. And so even as she got older, like into her 50s and 60s, whenever she would say the wizard's name, she would turn into like the superpowered like 9 or 10-year-old girl. And so it's different, but it's obviously a Captain Marvel cipher. And there's a very Captain America, but kind of Wildcat character. Did you get that, Sal? I mean, could you figure out where it's a slant? What's the guy's name? It's
yeah. What the hell is his name? I can't. You're asking me to remember shit. Come on, man. This is not fair. I was thinking he was like
Abraham Slam.
Abraham Slam. Like he was who's the guy on the poster? Uncle Sam. He was like Uncle Sam to me.
Yeah.
The kind of the character.
And it's kind of a Captain America origin, but they stopped just short of the like scientist formula and all of that, and then he just becomes a boxer. So it's kind of very, very wild. And then so anyway, you've got all of this cast of characters that are for some reason, the mystery is why they are living in this town on this kind of remote farm, and they can't leave, and they're very unhappy. And so there's a lot of really hard relationships between them because they're basically exiled, and they've been friends and more than friends, and now they just kind of have to tolerate each other. and the mystery is, where are they? Why are they there? And there's something to do with a character called the Black Hammer, who it alludes that character has died and sacrificed himself in some sort of like great infinite, crisis or crisis on infinite Earths type of cataclysm. And so they had to, what you're kind of led to believe is that they had to sacrifice themselves for the sake of the universe, but you don't know what's going on. But it's really, really good. There's a weight to Lemire's writing that it's hard to find that. I was reading, I was telling Sal, I was reading Deadly Class, which is good. It doesn't, for me, have the same weight of Lemire's writing. It's almost like it's an easy weight where everything means something, but it just, I don't know, it just kind of feels right. And the art by Dean Ormston is great. It definitely has that dark horse feel to it. It's not superhero-y art. It's kind of got some grime to it, a little grit, which I think this story needs. I was reading the back, supplemental material, and apparently Lemire had this as an idea dating back, well over a decade. He was going to do this, but then got Sweet Tooth was greenlit from Vertigo, and so he kind of had to put this on the back burner. So he'd been working on this idea for a long time, and it's awesome. I love it.
I just downloaded the first volume from my local library.
You will adore this, Tom. It is. It's.
I'm reading it.
Really
Let's
Yes.
record me reading each page.
You already did that. That was already a podcast.
Oh yeah. Okay, let me do this.
Just go through the next hour. We'll just listen to you talk us through the first volume.
Just hear me gently, like reading it to myself. Like,
That was very semi-popular podcast from what I hear.
That's all I ever aimed for. Was semi-popular.
Semi-popular.
Yeah, but I did download it from the library, so I'm gonna
Hoopla?
start reading. Yeah, actually, yes.
Love Hoopla. Love it.
We have a great library here too. The old Wauwatosa library in City Hall.
Have you signed up for the Hoopla app?
No, but it sounds like I need.
Get the Hoopla app, and you log in with your library card, and you can download all sorts of comics. And they put out new stuff every month, trades, and it's all free. It's through your library. It's awesome.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah. Hoopla's great.
I have, and I'm not going to go deep into it, but I've got a little bit of more Lemire love. Jeff, his writing just always kind of resonated with me, and so as I'm kind of jumping back into some stuff, it's really easy to say, oh, okay, that's a Lemire comic. I will get that. This was Jeff Lemire and Eduardo Rizzo, so super easy fucking sell for me. But have you all read his Hit Girl run? I
haven't.
First of all, it's Eduardo Rizzo art, so you're gonna love that. But Lemire does this crazy hit girl in Canada story. That was
I didn't even know about that. That's the Mark Miller Hit Girl. Yeah, right.
Yes, yeah. So they spun her off into her own series, and Miller did the first one with a guy named Ricardo Lopez Ortiz, and the art in that was great. But then the second volume is Jeff Lemire and Eduardo Rizzo, and it's really good.
Have you finished the first volume of Black Hammer?
Yes,
you have. Okay.
Yes,
and you haven't started on the second volume yet.
It is on my nightstand.
Gotcha.
I will start that this evening.
It's really interesting what he starts to do with this book. I'm not going to spoil it for you because you need to enjoy it as you read it. But it's it's just really cool how he starts sort of spinning the web of this book and universe that he's creating, and it goes on and on. It's really I love everything that he's done with Black Hammer. He's done a couple of spin-offs already that all tie into the original one in some way, or some a little closer than others. But
What I really like is that the whole like ciphers for old Silver and Golden Age characters could have been a bit, and that's good for a few issues, but it's not. I mean, they're still their own fully formed characters, but they do give you kind of a sense. He basically uses it to give you a baseline of kind of what the characters' motivations are, without making it a bit.
Yeah, for sure. He's sort of setting you up a little bit too, of like, so he can play with the conventions. It's like, okay, these are your superheroes. You kind of know these superheroes. You know these characters a little bit, but I'm gonna mess with them. I'm gonna mess with what you think, because that's a little more interesting.
So Tom, there's a character. He's named Barbalian, and Barbalian, and it's a Martian Manhunter cipher, and his alter ego, his name is Mark Marks. So instead of John Jones, so it's stuff like that,
Okay, I'm reading it right now. I'm trying to read this.
We'll just leave you alone, and you go ahead.
First page, yeah. First page,
worst
thumbs up.
podcast
Excellent.
ever.
Enjoying it.
Yeah.
Second page,
takes a
it's
sharp turn.
I don't know. Wait, it's good.
Did you guys pick up the Jason Aaron and Mahmoud Ashrar Conan?
I did, actually. Yes, I had heard good things pre-release, and so I was like, I'll check out Conan. Why not?
It's Conan.
Yeah, it's Conan. Is it Conan?
And that's
or
exactly.
Conan?
And it's Conan.
Conan.
Or Conan.
Conan.
And I would describe this as being it's a Conan the Barbarian comic. It's good.
Conan.
Very, very descriptive of you. Conan.
No, I mean, did you feel like it? I mean, it's Conan. It's
Conan.
Is it Conan or is it Conan?
It was good. Did you? I mean, it looked great, and it was a great introduction to a what I felt was a pretty standard, Conan story.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree with you. It was good. It was solid.
I enjoyed it.
Yes. I think Conan is, one of those books where I think it's hard at this point to keep it fresh and interesting. You've seen so much,
You're never going to see Conan on a spaceship.
Well, that was kind of Exo Man of War, wasn't it? A little bit.
Yeah. But it's I think we've probably all read enough of those stories to kind of expect what a Conan story is going to be, and you'll put him in different locations, or on a ship or whatever. But I mean, at the end of the day, he's going to be attacking a giant snake god,
right?
And and it's, if he ever sleeps with a really hot, mysterious woman that comes out of nowhere, 99% of the time it's a witch. 99% of the time it's a witch. Almost guaranteed.
He's got a type, man. What are you gonna do?
It's like, come on, dude. We've been here before, man. It's like, you should know by now that you should not be sleeping with this woman.
He wakes up in the morning. He's like,
again.
Why? Conan.
Now I'm going to think about it every time I say it. Conan or Conan.
Well,
Conan the Barbarian.
Yes. Or the Destroyer. But I enjoyed it.
But it is, it is Jason Aaron, so I think he's got a pretty good track record of decent writing. He's pretty good.
Here's what I would say is that while the story may be conventional, it is done really well, because Jason is a great writer, and so I mean, dialogue is spot on, and the pacing is really good. I mean, it's not his first rodeo, and Jason's a great writer. Yeah. And then you pair him up with someone like Mahmoud on art, and this is as good as Conan's going to be. It's
right.
It's that
I can see the blurb now. Conventional and good.
It's on the back of the first volume.
Very, very conventional, but the best that a conventional
high end of conventional. It's the highest conventional Conan.
That sounds horrible, but there's a level of expectation of what you want in one of these stories, and they deliver that, but they deliver it very, very well. It's like going to a steakhouse. It's a really, really good steak. You know what you're getting, but it's a really good steak.
At the end of the day, you're chewing on cow flesh.
Oh, you bought a Conan book, right?
Yes.
You want him to sleep with a witch.
Yes.
That's what you want.
I'd be disappointed.
Let's be honest.
That's why I spent the $3.99.
That's why you spent the $4. Of course you want that.
$4.99 for the first issue.
You want him in a pit, fighting some dudes and chopping heads off, banging a witch.
Yeah.
And,
for $5 yeah. I want a pit of snakes.
There is the first chapter of a little novella in here. So, Black Starlight by John Stocking, which I have not read yet, but now I feel like I need to.
Well, for your $5, you got to get your money's worth.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the is it Esad Ribic?
Yes.
Really nice covers. Really nice covers.
I can't even say Conan. I don't know how to pronounce that dude's name.
Esad. Conan.
Esad Rybak.
Stop. All right, so that's all I've read the last 7 years. How about you guys?
I'm halfway through the Black Hammer.
Wow.
The first issue.
If we just keep talking, Chris, by the time we're done,
have a full book.
He'll be able to review Black Hammer.
Yeah, I'll give you my instant review.
I read a book this week that I was actually really impressed with, and it was a Marvel comic book. Yeah, The Invaders #1 from Chip Zdarsky.
Oh my gosh! If an Invader, wait, you read an Invaders book? You of all people?
I know, shocker, right? Like World War II, Captain America. Yeah, I know. It's I'm so out of character, but no, I had to try
Conan banging a witch.
Yeah.
If I read Sal's gonna read an Invaders comic. That's if I'm paying $5 for this.
I think you were still offering like Brubaker a ton of money to write an Invaders book at one point. You're just like, I'll finance it.
He should have. Finance? I'm not financing.
Write it just for me.
Just for me. I'm gonna commission an Invaders book written by Ed Brubaker with art by who would be? It'd be. I'm trying to think of who I'd want.
Epstein.
No, it'd be the late great Darwin Cook. That's who.
There you go.
It's me. So
that would be an odd book.
That dream is over. All right. Anyway, back to this Invaders that actually exists. It's Chip Zdarsky wrote it, and I was shocked by it a little bit because I don't know that much about Chip Zdarsky other than he has a fun name. But I always kind of connected him with more lighter fare, a little funnier stuff. I always thought he was kind of a silly writer a little bit, a lot of his stuff. But this is not that. This is not silly at all. This is actually really well written and interesting. It's art by Carlos Mongo with Butch Guice. Terrific art.
Wow.
But yeah,
Butch Guice.
Love Butch Guice. But basically the idea behind this is that Namor is sort of suffering with late PTSD from World War II. He's kind of experiencing some sort of anxiety and flashbacks and things going back to the war, back to terrible things that happened in World War II when he was fighting alongside Cap and Bucky and Toro and the original Human Torch. And it's affecting his decision making as the king of Atlantis. And he's they realize he's kind of planning a war against the surface again. It's what Namor does every once in a while, but he hasn't really done that in a long time. So the setup here is that Cap and Bucky, Winter Soldier, and James Hammond, the original Human Torch, who's now a writer. He's writing a book about the invaders. They kind of get wind of this, and Cap and the Winter Soldier are going to go try and stop Namor from starting this. But what I was really impressed with was it flashes back and forth between World War II and today, and their time then, and the idea of like these guys suffering from PTSD or suffering from the effects of fighting in that war and losing people, and someone like Namor, who has always been a very cold character. He's never really shown a lot of emotion or empathy or any type of care for humans, really. But this kind of shows him in a little different light, and I was really kind of touched by how they set this up and how they're Zdarsky set up Namor as the bad guy in this book, but also as a very sympathetic one. So I'm really interested to see where this goes, because I think it's a terrific idea, to take these characters that have literally been around forever and to go back to World War II and try and pull a new story out of all that. I thought this was a novel approach and something that's very modern, and with the more and more we've learned about PTSD and soldiers coming back from war and how the effect that it has on these guys, I think it's a timely story too. So I was just really impressed with it overall, from the writing, just the concept of it and the setup and everything, and the art's terrific as well. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, I can't recommend enough. I thought it was really well done, and I was surprised.
I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm in.
It was good. I mean,
all right, let me go download it. Jesus Christ, guys, I'm still working on.
Sir, you're never going to be done. This is going to be a 3-hour podcast. We're just waiting for Tom to read.
Where are we at?
About an hour. We're
about an hour?
Yeah, about an hour. A little over an hour, maybe.
Yeah?
Like yeah. I don't know.
You guys think? Yeah, good. Hour good.
That's good.
I'm
That's
good.
good for me.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've got to read The Invaders. Tom's almost done with the Black Hammer trade. We'll get his report here in
his report
in closing minutes. Y'all keeping up with the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen? I think we got 3 issues left.
I haven't. I have to admit.
I think I'm gonna need to read it all at once. I may actually, even though the last one came with 3D glasses, which you gotta love that.
What?
So, but yeah, doing the 3D, the 3D thing again. But this is it. They're both hanging it up after this. That's what.
Yeah, supposedly.
That's what they say.
Didn't Alan Moore quit comics like 10 years ago?
Something like that.
He quits like every time he writes.
Well,
this is it.
Like,
I'm done.
It's like this is.
He loves the drama.
He does.
He is the Muhammad Ali of comics. He will just fucking keep retiring. So, yeah. All right. Well, hey, this was good. So we're gonna once a month we'll come back. Early March now.
Yeah.
All right.
I think so.
Unless you guys get bored, I'm always.
I mean, we might. I don't know. It might be another 7 years.
Could be.
It could be. This could be the 70s. We're like cicada. We're comic book cicadas. That's what we are. We just come out of the ground every fucking 7 years.
Who knows how our lives will change in the next 7 years?
Tom's gonna have 3 more children.
No, that is not gonna happen.
You're still a copywriter, right? Like have you changed? Yeah.
That's still my job.
You're enjoying that?
I'm still working on it. Yeah.
Good.
It's going well. Yeah.
2 kids, man. My kids are. I have 2 kids too, but they're like almost adults now. So.
Oh yeah. No, my kids are 2 and 5. They're.
Oh, that's fun.
Do they like each other?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Do they like you?
Yeah, most of the time. Most of the time.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, this is good. And what's funny about all this is that Tom was always Mr. Wisconsin whenever we started, and now I freaking live here, and so I think about you a lot, Tom. I'm like, yeah, Tom would say, yeah, just roll with it, Chris. Accept it. It's Wisconsin. It's Wisconsin.
Everyone's
just roll
junk.
with it. Pretty much.
Everyone's drunk.
This is a true statement.
Yeah.
Everyone's yes.
drunk.
Yeah.
If there's a salad at a party, it doesn't have vegetables in it. It's got mayonnaise in it. That's
a lot of fucking mayonnaise and mustard.
Yeah, there's a lot of vegetables.
Not even celery. Not even a little bit of celery in there.
And a bloody. Mayonnaise,
they're very diverse in the religions up here. There's Catholics and Lutherans.
Yeah, both.
They have both religions here.
Both types of white people.
Pretty much. All right. Well, guys, this was awesome. I'm looking forward to doing this. We'll get one on the calendar for early March. Yeah. So this episode was brought to you by no one, which is okay.
Yeah. And it won't be.
No one is
sponsoring us.
No one is going to sponsor this, and I'm okay with that. But
we're still the best free comic book podcast out there.
So just good.
Number one.
Just good to sit down with some old friends and talk about comics again. I've really missed you guys. I've missed this.
I agree. It's been
all right.
I'm glad we're all back to enjoying comics again, and not like trying to service any audience or anything like that. Let's just read.
I'm glad we've stopped caring about entertaining people.
Yeah.
And it shows. Informative.
It's your job, Tom.
That's
literally your fucking job.
Stop informing them. You could not possibly find a host who knows less about what's going on with comics than me right now.
It's perfect.
Okay,
it's perfect.
It's absolutely
great.
We're
literally nothing.
We're gonna discover it together. It's great.
Because
I'm already.
As long as it's on Hoopla, I'll download it during the show.
Hey man, Hoopla, DC Universe. It's like a new world has been fucking opened up for me.
You guys want to talk about Super Friends? I got that.
Nice.
I have all kinds of thoughts on that. But
God, I haven't watched that in a long time. I might have to go check that out on the DC Universe app. I haven't watched this.
My son loves it. It's just obsessed.
My wife is a huge Black Manta fan. Always has been. That's like her guy.
He was awesome in the Aquaman movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was pretty awesome. They did. I think they did him pretty well in the movie.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll watch it when it comes to the red box.
The old red box.
You say it's in Wisconsin. It's called the bread box because it comes with bread. You get a movie inside that.
No, Tom, I actually do have a question. Hot ham and rolls.
Jesus Christ! What are we talking about here?
What is this about? What is the hot ham and rolls about?
I don't know anything about hot ham and rolls.
Okay.
That might be a Milwaukee thing.
It might be a Milwaukee thing. Yeah, hot ham and rolls on Sunday. It's a thing.
It sounds like it's. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like hot ham on a roll.
Yes. Yes.
Probably mustard. Maybe.
Why do you have so many questions about this, Chris? It seems pretty simple.
Yeah.
Well, that and there is also the observation that every restaurant in the state of Wisconsin has a fish fry on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Regardless of what kind of food it is. We went to a Vietnamese restaurant on Friday. They had a fish fry.
I'll tell you about the best fish fry in Green Bay off air.
Okay.
I don't want people to know about it.
Yeah, you can't give that shit away.
I can't give that. Yeah,
I'm going to be there on a Friday.
Podcast.
Yeah. Going to be at the old Green Bay Curling Club in 2 weeks.
Speaking of podcasts, just before I forget, if people want to subscribe, they can. We're back on iTunes. The Around Comics podcast is back on iTunes.
They let us back in.
They did. It took a little work. I had to finagle a little bit. I actually, funny enough, so I submitted it to iTunes, and they denied it initially. So I contacted them. I'm like, hey, why did you deny our podcast? You know, and I thought it was going to be something technical because it only has the feed has 287 episodes in it, but there's only 10 that actually link to an audio file because I haven't uploaded all the audio files yet. It's going to be.
Oh my God!
I know.
Oof.
But that wasn't the reason why.
But Tom, we're starting with the last ones we recorded, and not the fucking first ones.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm going backwards.
Yeah.
but the reason they denied it was some language in some of the descriptions of the episodes they didn't like. I had to change a couple of words in some of our episode descriptions. They were not. Let's just say they didn't agree with the Me Too movement. Today's gentler souls of podcasting may, So I had to change some language, which was fine, no problem. You know, we've all grown and learned from
It's been 7 years.
our Bill Cosby days of the past.
No, that's not.
But we are on iTunes.
That time that Tom roofied me.
No, yeah.
God.
We're on Spotify. We are on Google Podcasts. So yeah, you can get all that, or you can get them all on aroundcomics.com. Their website is up, and they're there too. So if you want to,
is this going to be an all new number one, or we just kind of continuing on?
I think well, because there's some. I went through all the episodes. I was kind of trying to figure it out, honestly, and my best recollection, I think this should be episode 300. Because the last numbered episode is 287, but there's a bunch of like B and C episodes that were like 2 and 3 parters that we had done years ago and stuff like that.
Yeah, you got out of control.
So so I think this is episode 300. I think that's a nice number to relaunch on.
So what's awesome is that there's a little photo collage-y thing on the website, and I pulled up one of the pictures of us at my apartment, which would had to have been back in like 2006, and it's like angry biker Sal with a drinking, and we're all drinking PBRs. There's a pack of smokes on the table.
Hot ham on rolls.
What's so funny is that the computer in the background is an old school like bubble iMac.
Nice.
I'm just like, holy crap! Yeah, that has to be. It's how many? So 13 years ago.
Well, our first episode was 2006.
Yeah.
2006.
Yeah. This was early. This is pre Dark Tower. This had to be like, the first month or so that we were recording. So we all look young and full of life, except for Sal.
I looked like a hot ham and roll sandwich away from a heart attack.
Pretty much. Yeah. You're half a Sal now. So. All right. Well, guys, let's wrap this one up. It's awesome. I can't wait to talk to y'all again here in a little less than a month. And for anyone out there listening, thanks for listening to us blather on about comics, and looking forward to getting more episodes out for you to walk the dog with, or go to the gym, or just sit around and enjoy listening to. So for Sal and Tom, this is Chris, and we'll be back in a month. In the meantime,
in between time,
we'll be everywhere in
and around comics.
Hey, we still got it.